Robert Johnson was a blues guitar player, and he wasn't very good. He disappeared. He came back, and he was extraordinary. He went to the Crossroads.
Hey, this is Unrefined Podcast. I'm Brandon Spain, your host, with co-host Lindsy Waters. Welcome to another episode. Hey, you guys. Welcome to another Epishow of We're Watching You. And tonight I have Lindsy.
Hey, guys.
And my son, Nathan.
Hello.
And a very special guest tonight that is an awesome guy and my awesome guitar teacher, Kenny. Kenny C.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about Crossroads, the movie Crossroads. And I'm going to kind of facilitate since we have so many people in the group here and where everybody will talk and we can hear everybody's opinion and stuff. Just want to start out with kind of the basics of the plot and you know, some of the actors and stuff like that. Who wants to go there? Wants to discuss that?
Hey, I'll talk a little bit about the movie. The movie,
Yeah.
For me, played a huge part in my in just my life and what's done to it. The movie made me want to go to Berklee College of Music because of Steve Vai. Seeing him playing the devil's advocate, the guitar player, man, it was like incredible. But you know, and I think without the basic storyline is something that most musicians probably have heard about, and that is it's the basic plot has to do with Robert Johnson and the famed blues guy, and he only wrote so many songs, and the basic storyline of Robert Johnson, which kind of lays out what the whole movie about, is that Robert Johnson was a guitar player, blues guitar player, and he wasn't very good. And he disappeared, and I'm not sure of the timeline, 6 to 9 months, maybe, something like that. He came back, and he was extraordinary and was like this amazing blues guitar player. And they didn't know what made that happen. So the storyline was that he went to the Crossroads, and he went to the Crossroads, and he sold his soul to the devil to be this amazing guitar player. And that's the story of where Crossroads comes about. And the actual Crossroads story puts in a little bit of fiction with having Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid, as this young the kid. He's like a kid, a student at a classical music place. So he plays classical guitar, but his love is blues, and he really loves the blues. So he does a lot of blues stuff, but he has this classical technique and all these things. But there's a guy in this nursing home he works at who says he knew Robert Johnson. He played with Robert Johnson, and he says there's a song that Robert Johnson has that no one has ever heard, and he can get it for him if he'll break him out of this nursing home. So, and I can't remember. I'm trying to think of his name because it's been a while since I watched it. But is it Blind Willie?
No, it's Blind Dog Fulton.
Blind Dog Willie Brown, I think, or Willie Brown Fulton. Or Fulton's the place says they were going to go to. The geography is a little iffy in that.
It is. The story kind of goes all over the place with that. But the basic idea is that this guy says, hey, I have a song that Robert Johnson recorded that no one's ever heard. And if you break me out of this, old folks home, I'll get you to it and you'll get to hear it. And that's the kind of thing where Ralph Macchio decides that he's going to take him and break out, and they're going to travel to the Crossroads. And there's a lot more to the story than that goes along with it. I don't know if anybody else would like to add to that, but that's the basic synopsis of kicking off the whole story of Crossroads.
Yeah, as they begin to journey across from New York City where they are and down to Mississippi, they ride the bus and stuff, and then they hobo, which I thought was really, really cool. A term you don't hear much very often. And they hobo down to Actually right near where we live, Yazoo City, which we live 20 miles from. Actually, that's where my son went to school.
Wow.
And but
that's where I grew up.
Yeah, and like Lindsay said, there's a lot of off geography, but there's a lot of other off stuff that we'll get into that we talked to, like a lot of combination of different bluesmen into that one character.
Yeah, like a composite.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they made their journey and they met a female protagonist, Jamie Gertz, who was also in The Lost Boys, which we just reviewed. And she was Frances was her name, and she was just a runaway.
Frances.
And so that was the love interest for Ralph Macchio, Eugene Martone.
Yeah, she wasn't just a love interest for Ralph Macchio, man. And she was a love interest for every young man that was in America. Who didn't love her, man? Dude, she was amazing. She still looks good, man. She's beautiful.
I haven't seen her lately. We talked about Gremlins and the girl that was in Gremlins. That was one of my heartthrobs. I can't remember her name. She's been like in a few movies.
Phoebe Cates.
Who was that?
Yeah,
Phoebe Cates.
Was it Phoebe Cates?
Yeah, Phoebe Cates. Yeah.
Phoebe Cates. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he meets her and they develop a relationship and they have some few I love the whole scenes where they have the two bars across the street from each other, which is typical Mississippi. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And you have, I have it right down the road. You'll have a juke joint that's like, 100 feet from a black juke joint, and they won't juke together. And I kept telling everybody when we were watching the movie, I'm like, I would rather be in the black one, honestly. I prefer the blues more than I do country, And but they almost get into
it looked more fun.
They almost get into a fight, and him and Blind Dog or Willie Brown rock the house with his new Telecaster and his little pig nose amp. And it was.
Yeah, who did? Hey, man, everybody's guitar player wanted a pig nose until they got one and played it.
I don't remember
like,
one. I had a little PB.
I don't sound very good on this.
Yeah, I think they sold a bunch of those when it came out.
Yeah,
but the Telecaster was choice, though. I love that. I love that Telecaster. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, fantastic, man.
So, anybody else want to finish the story?
Well, eventually they make it to this place outside of Vicksburg, I want to say. I don't know how that worked, but and find a little boarding house where he hoped to reconnect with a woman that used to, I think they hinted at she may have been a lady of the night or something to that effect. But and then he asks about the Crossroads, and I guess the Jamie Gertz, her character, kind of takes off. She's without telling Ralph Macchio, they had kind of become semi love interest, and she told Blind Dog, "Hey, there's no goodbyes on the road," so she didn't want to tell him goodbye. But anyway, at some point they make their way down to close to Vicksburg and find somebody to take them to the Crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know ought to be a good ways from Vicksburg. It's up around Clarksdale. But
yeah, I know exactly where it is. Actually, when this movie came out, when I was a kid, a group of us as friends drove up to this place where they filmed it. And it's right outside of Clarksdale. I don't know if the tree is still there anymore because it was old and rotted when we went. But I bet you I could find it again if I tried. But yeah, we went up there just for the nostalgia and the mystique of it. We didn't go up there to, of course, a few of my friends were like, "Hey, old Scratch, where are you?" And stuff like that, which I didn't know what I was doing as a kid, But
right.
But yeah, it's right up there. And hey, my unrefined friends, I just want to tell you guys that I am so thankful that you are my life. Some of our best fans have been writing to us, and I just so encouraged about how lives are being transformed and people are getting something out of this podcast. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why we're doing this, is to glorify Jesus and to just look at the world and have a more open view of the seen and the unseen and the supernatural in the world. So while we're doing that, we're going to handle all different kinds of topics. But see, what I'd like for you to be involved in or part of is our members only group. Things that are coming in our members only group that are going to just blow your mind. Not to mention, there's going to be episodes in there that you won't be able to hear just on the normal episode channel. So make sure to visit our website at unrefinedpodcast.com and check out our members only community. I just can't stress the fact that, we're after building a community, and there's so much out there, you guys, and there's so much coming. I really believe we need to build these strong communities of Christ followers to be able to handle what might be coming in the future days. We're sure that you'd be a good fit, and we cannot wait. I can't wait to see you there. Then, Nathan, what happens then? They make it to the crossroads.
They make it to the crossroads. Then Scratch shows up. Or the devil, Scratch, Legba, whatever they call him in the movie.
Yeah.
Whatever name he goes by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To stick with the times. And then they get taken somewhere in like a portal or something. And then the best part of the movie happens.
Yeah.
The guitar duel.
Mm-hmm.
The cutting heads is what they call it.
The head cut duel. And it's like in an old church.
Yes.
It has that old church feel, and you've got all the choir singing.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
They're having a funeral, almost like it's Eugene's funeral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or Willie's. One of the two.
Or Willie's.
Yeah.
Well, up to that point, right before they get transported, Ralph Macchio doesn't really believe in the whole situation, the supernatural. And most of the movie doesn't even apply to that. You don't even know if the story's real until, Wine Billy wants his soul back. And, Scratch, they're like, no, you don't get yours back. And Ralph Macchio, the kid says, well, you can have mine. He's like, don't do that, Lightning Boy. And, he's like, he doesn't believe it's real anyways. He even says it. I don't believe this is real.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're transported to it. And, that's when the movie really takes off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely
which is like at the end.
Yeah, at the end. Well, I mean, I enjoyed. There was a lot of great blues music through the whole thing. I mean, there was a lot of great playing by Rock Cooter, who played all the slide stuff, and it's pretty spectacular. But I don't know if you guys remember this, and I might be a little bit off track here, but when the official soundtrack came out for the movie, it did not include the head cutting duel. It was not on it. And I was it wasn't on it. I was so disappointed. It was basically just the Rock Cooter slide songs that were all through the movie, but no head cutting duel. It never was on the soundtrack, and it still isn't. So, like, for me to figure out how to play the head cutting duel back in that day I had an old VHS recording where I'd gotten it off of, one of the HBOs or something. And then that's what I would sit with and just watch and listen to figure out what was being played, because there was no, you couldn't get it on CD or cassette or anything at that time period. So I was really disappointed when I got it. Went, where is the big battle? I was like, it's the best part of the whole movie, and so that was the case with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I want to tell a little story here. Part of the podcast is I found not too long before this, we watched Crossroads. I found a YouTube video where they're actually playing. Actually, another guy's playing what Ralph Macchio is actually playing, which is really awful and irritating, and during the duel and stuff. And and then Kenny sent it to me the other day and says, "This is what I sent, a friend of ours." And I'm like, "Dude, that's just so crazy! A movie we just watched. This is a movie we're going to do a podcast about." And he's like, "Well, that's my favorite all-time movie. That's what inspired me to go to Berkeley. And I'm like, man, you've got to come on the show, man. That's too cool, and we're just going to talk about it and pick it
Here's
apart.
the biggest problem with me, man. Yeah, I only really watch the last part of the movie. I don't really watch much anything else, man. I'm always like, I go to the part and it goes to it, and you hear Vi come in with the guitar, and then it kicks in, and you're like, yep, that's the part I want to see. I'm going to tell a funny story real quick. I'm going to go on a sidetrack. Back, I want to say maybe 20 years ago, I was trying to find the movie on DVD. I wanted it, and it may have been, I'm going to go, it was probably the early 2000s, late 90s. The timeline's a little off. Whenever Britney Spears was getting big, that's all I'm going to say. Because I went to this record place, DVD movie place, and I was like, yeah, I want to order the movie Crossroads. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, we've got it available here. And so he orders it, and they call me, and they're like, hey, man, we got your movie in. And I go, and it's the Britney Spears movie Crossroads. And I was like, what is this? He's like, it's Crossroads. And I was like, oh, no, this is not Crossroads, man. It was basically, it was like I done bought a movie of Britney Spears, and it was like, it was terrible. And I was like, I told him, I was like, this is not the movie I wanted. I wanted the one where they were like, we don't even know if that's available. So
did he give you the Bone Thugs and Harmony song next?
Well, yeah, that's right. Crossroads, that's right. That's it, man. I was like, oh, this is not it. I mean, but crazy.
That's hilarious, man. Of all people,
yep.
Britney Spears.
Yeah. Yep. Why do you have a Crossroads, Britney Spears? Hey, man, don't ask. I'm not gonna look. It's what happened with it. They're like, I thought you like guitar playing. Not Britney jumping around in her underwear. That's terrible. It's a terrible movie. Terrible.
Yeah.
God.
Don't tell me you bought it.
We don't want to get on the
Britney
Britney train because.
Yeah. You're
no,
right.
no. Hey, look, I was young. It was, I was different then. So it was like, hey, Britney Spears, let's check it out. So, yeah, I still have it. I still have the movie. It's still in my collection. Yeah, it's somewhere, man. It's one of those things. I'd already paid for it, man. And they weren't going to like, well, you've already opened it. And like, whatever. So,
wow.
And then I got the real one. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Copy of Britney Spears, It's probably going to be worth some money, man, because who knows with her anymore, man. Have you seen the videos where they're saying that they think that she's not even, it's not even her anymore?
Alive.
Like it's like a
deep fake.
There's like a filter. I watched the video and I watched it and I was like, that is completely freaky. Somebody could, they can do it. They have the ability to put the filters on. They can do it on anybody. So they can be faking Britney. And that's, that's crazy to think about. So that's more scary than her movie.
Absolutely. Oh goodness. Yeah. So all right, so let's look at this like through our fringy eyes now, okay? So what I mean, obviously we've discussed this. Like Kenny said at the beginning, it's all about that Faustian mythos of Faust, making a deal with the devil. That's the overall motif of the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Did anybody get any kind of insight into it that they want to share or that they found, from the characters or from the plot? Lindsay, didn't you have something that you wanted to share?
Yes, man. I had so much. Look, I kind of got lost. I mean, I lost the movie and the Crossroads and Blues and all the just reading up about Legba and the Crossroads and just all the West African religion that the enemy used.
Hoodoo.
But hoodoo, voodoo, the original Yoruba and Fawn religions from West Africa. And Santeria is based on a lot of the same stuff. They have Legba and Ishu, who are just sometimes the same as Legba and sometimes differently. But yeah, to sum it up, I mean, it's like that line I said. What was it for probably the sleep paralysis episode? The devil will dance to any tune you play as long as he can play you in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that so much in a lot of the whole Legba thing. He was kind of this West African trickster figure He's master of all languages. He's kind of a mediator between the gods, so-called, and man. And he's kind of a Promethean sort of steals knowledge from the gods and gives it to people kind of guy. So, man, you're in Nephilim, Divine Council territory already there.
Yeah.
And that's what the slaves brought over when they jumped the Atlantic in the Caribbean and in America, too. It made it to Louisiana and it made it to the Mississippi Delta. And, they talked about mojo in there. That was the little charms. I think we associate that with male sex drive, but that's what a lot of the charms were about. It gives them the mojo in the movie. And one thing that was very interesting to me is I was talking with Brandon about this earlier. You Kenny, you talked about you wondered how much of the movie, like from their point of view, is real.
Yeah.
Well, at the end, he shakes hand with Willie. Willie tells him, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to help you get famous now that you just won that." But they're still on the crossroads. And he says, "Hey, do we have a deal?" And he shakes his hand, and everything looks weird. It looks like they're still in another dimension. Okay, so Blind Dog is his name. Dogs are associated with Legba. It's like his sacred animal, or one of them. And there's even a story of him carving a wooden dog and giving it life, and sounded like he created dogs in this folk tale for humans. But yeah, so this guy named with dog in his name at the end shakes the Eugene character's hand and said, "We got a deal." And man, that made me wonder, all right, is he Legba? Is he working for Legba? Did Eugene just sell his soul? I mean,
that's a really good observation on that. I actually, at one time, I didn't know that much what you were saying. That's some really good information. But I always wondered that because he won the battle. Eugene won the battle with his trick bag, and then blind Willie or Blind Dog was off. He was let go. That at that point, then his soul was saved, but maybe he had to take
as a substitution,
like a substitution. That would have made a great sequel, and still could, if you could play that up and be like, hey, he actually now went into contract with Blind Willie or whatever his name was on it, and he come into this whole thing with the dog that he could that he would be like, almost like a whole other thing of Eugene messed up and signed himself into him now. That he's got, because they were there at that place. There was something magical and occultic with it that you could do a sequel with this easily.
Wow,
and,
yeah.
It's there, but that's really good. That's some good information.
But yeah, so I geeked out on the Legba part and learned a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Most, like I said, to me as a musician and guitar player, I knew some of the basic background, but as I got older, I started realizing that Robert Johnson, his music played a way bigger part in a lot of famous musicians that I grew up listening to, like
absolutely.
Led Zeppelin, like Eric Clapton. All these people were covering these Robert Johnson songs and making them palatable to a new audience and a different time period. The same songs, Crossroads and stuff, and then it comes to Eric Clapton does it, and you look at that and you go, okay, these songs had some kind of significance tied to some kind of a cult, and they've kept it going on for all these years now. Literally almost 100 years after the fact, these things are still being played to new audiences still. So there's definitely something there going on with that music.
Yeah. Let me tell you that what I got out of it that relates to that. I did some deep dive and research because I was interested in the Willie Brown character, and there was a Willie Brown character in real life that was connected with Robert Johnson. Of course, he played guitar and he was kind of a backup character. But the main guy that this Willie Brown character was based on was a guy named John Edward House, or Son House is what they call him, a famous blues man. And he's almost as famous as Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. As a matter of fact, Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters both got a lot of their influence from this guy, Son House. And he was a preacher for a while. and then he started doing the blues, and he said he got him a blues religion. The interesting thing about him is he is connected with Robert Johnson and real Willie Brown. He's connected with both of them, but the character from the movie, though, is an amalgamation of several of them. Anyway, but it's James Edward House, or Son House, was really a fascinating character. The more I studied and read up on him, just too many similarities, obviously, to the movie, but also to the whole concept of the Crossroads, and then going forward to the a lot of his songs were remade by Led Zeppelin and some of these other rock stars later too. And it's just fascinating to me, the power that shows, but that shows what you said earlier, Kenny, is that it's not the music, it's the intent. It's the intent behind it, because it's interesting that a lot of the ones that remade those Robert Johnson songs were dabbling in. I mean, everybody knows Led Zeppelin was big on the occult. Yeah, I mean, heck, Jimmy Page bought Crowley's house.
Crowley's house. Yeah. No, they did. Yeah, they were deep in it, man. That's what you realize, that there's something there that they thought, that they probably felt that there was some really occultic power tied to these songs.
Yeah.
So, and if that's what you're shooting for, and that's what you're doing in the background, you're messing with some stuff that's pretty dark.
Well, and there's a difference too. I do want to demarcate the difference. There are some, particularly when we were younger, Kenny, guys who they dabbled in Satanism for publicity, but it really never went, very, very deep or skin deep, like the Crew or any of those guys. I mean, I won't write them off for not having an occultic influence, but I don't think they were as, there was more guys that were deeper into it and knew more about it and were more practitioners, I guess is a good word for it.
Yeah.
Like Zeppelin, and then interesting, you and y'all on your other show, Audiotopsy, hat tip to that show, that the Kitty's a part of. Y'all did Greta Van Fleet and that song, and that I mean, I just saw them following along right along their idols, so to speak. Zeppelin. The same.
Yeah, that's got some interesting stuff in that. That's a great episode. Meeting the Master. It's a good one. And if anybody doesn't know, Audiotopsy is part of Through the Black, Tom Dunn's ministry. Vicky Joy Anderson, author of They Only Come Out at Night. We do this a weekly podcast show. It's on YouTube, and we talk about music, different things on it. So we've got some. There's a really good one. If you want to get into one where I really went to, if you've not seen it, go watch the one on Layla with Eric Clapton, because I uncovered some stuff that was really very dark and occultic, and some ties that just I'd never had seen before or heard anyone talk about. But because when I was in Nashville recently, I was at a bookstore, and I like to go to places and find old books, and I found an actual a copy of the Book of Lies by Aleister Crowley. And I just opened it up, and there it was. And it was a thing about a demon named Layla. And I put it all in conjunction with what Clapton was learning from that time period. So it's one that people don't normally see, but when they realize and look at the lyrics, they go, wait a minute, what's he talking about? This girl? Or is he talking about, Layla, you got me on my knees praying to this demon goddess? It's an interesting correlation.
Wow.
Might be a stretch, but it was definitely worth looking into, because you start to realize that a lot of these guys all have a lot of super occultic ties between them. Clapton, all this stuff, and they all go back to Robert Johnson, which leads us back to Crossroads.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Nathan, do you have anything you want to contribute about what you saw in the movie that kind of jumped at you, that goes around the fringe or is on the fringe?
Well, the big thing, I didn't look too much into this, I'll be honest. I had an idea to, but I didn't. I wondered why exactly classical music had more of an impact in the end, because Eugene studied at Juilliard. He had classical, Mozart, Paganini, all that. but he was more wanting to be a blues man. The same reason that that Blind Dog Willie Brown wanted to be a blues man. But in the end, he didn't win by playing blues. He won the duel by playing classical. And I wondered if there was more of a connection to classical music being in a different place spiritually versus blues music because of the fact that the devil, Legba, Scratch, whatever, had more of a tune to blues music, saying as he helped these young boys become major blues musicians versus classical music, which I don't know. I can't remember there being a lot of story interpretations of classical musicians making deals with the devil.
Right.
But I wondered in what aspect classical music had more of a leg up on blues enough to win a duel versus Scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or what if the very fact that Eugene played what was in his heart instead of trying to be somebody else, he played what was in his heart, and that's what really came out. What was in his soul, But he played it in a bluesy way. I mean, I think that was Paganini. Kenny can probably tell us who he was playing. I think that's
well.
Isn't that who he?
What's really now here? Yeah, that he was playing some of the Paganini Caprice stuff, which is really funny to think about because Paganini was always had been questioned for being evoking the devil. That he played so wildly with the violin that he was like a rock star. What we would think because he had long hair and he would wildly play the thing, so they would think his stuff was dark. So it's kind of interesting that he battles him with something that Paganini had some ties to. That it was the same thing. It was going on to it. I think personally the aspect of Eugene winning with the classical stuff was just that he had that was his foundation. And even though it wasn't what his passion was, he had built up his playing and skill set on that. And then he had the blues on top of it. And when he got up against this guy that was just like, blues on speed, Steve Vai coming in there, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to unveil. Let's see if this guy can hang with this. And that's where that kind of came into it. The funny thing about the whole thing is the whole last battle, without the slide, when it's going on to Eugene's, what they call it, Eugene's trick bag is what he comes out. That's what they call the piece when Eugene plays that piece. Is that Steve Vai played both parts, and so I would always joke with people that I could play the part where Steve Vai messed up. I can play that one really well. It's great. That's it. So you get to hear Steve Vai. Steve Vai is literally battling himself and then playing it poorly. So you get to watch him play it really well, and then as Eugene, and then Steve Vai plays it terribly, but he really played both parts. So that's kind of funny.
That's got to be hard to play sucky. You know what I'm saying? When you're so used to play, because I understand. I know enough about Steve Vai. He is very scientific and very methodical and very much OCD when it comes to guitar. I mean, I've heard that about him and read that about him. And so to mess up would be hard.
So yeah. Well, no, I'll tell you a little secret. We're going Vai at Berklee, and even at the time, because that's why I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, was because when I saw the movie and Steve Vai, and then there was a lot of other people when I started researching it. Quincy Jones that did a lot of the Michael Jackson production for records and writing. Yeah. There was there was a lot of people that went there, and Berklee was mainly a jazz school. And so I kind of come in there at that time period when we were all the glam metal heads coming in with the long hair, and we were kind of rolling in there at the late 80s and stuff. But there was all kinds of things with Vai there. But what was really interesting when you got around these places where, and it's hard to explain to people, you think you're pretty good, and you might be. I was like really good for the area I lived in, for Roanoke and Southwest Virginia. And then you go to a place and there's people there at your age or younger who are better than any other musician you've ever seen. All your heroes, they're better than them. And you're like, it's like it's definitely it knocks you down a couple pegs and makes you really think about what's important in music stuff. But I'm going to tell you what Steve Vai used to do. I mean, I don't know if you know, but Steve Vai was at Berkeley. He would transcribe Frank Zappa's music and send it to him. He would write it all out, and Frank Zappa was so impressed by that he pulled him out of Berkeley and made him his little guitar guy. And so Vai could write out stuff. This is pre-tab stuff, pre-guitar tab. This was actual notated music. He would write out the charts of this super complex stuff for Frank Zappa. So, but here you're talking about like Vai trying to mess up. We would purposely have jam sessions where we'd say, play the worst solo you could possibly play. And you had to know all the good notes to know where the bad notes were. So I know we did that when I was there. So I knew that. I was like thinking about it. I thought Vai was channeling that little thing of like, oh man, okay, just can you mess this up? Play something like you would mess it up. And although, you know, his technique is pretty spectacular. And but yeah, we used to do stuff like that. We'd be like, oh, let's try to play the worst. And we would just laugh because, you know, you're musicians and you know how bad it is. You're like, oh man, that note right there was the worst note you could possibly play. So yeah, awesome. We did that stuff.
That's cool. Yeah. So anything else, guys? Did y'all think there was a significance in the number 29? I mean, I don't want to overanalyze this, you know, because we don't want to overanalyze this, but 29 songs versus 30. You think
I didn't see anything in that.
Okay. All right, cool.
I noticed there was a large amount of threes in the movie.
That's how old did they say Robert Johnson was when he died?
Oh,
because I think they may have.
I've heard 27.
That's what I'm thinking.
I thought he was part of the 27 club.
27 club, and I think about that. I think that's a very significant thing. 27, you know, 2 and 7. That's a 9. That's a, you know, there's a cultic part of that Robert Johnson could have been the very first 27 club, you know.
That's true.
Because there's a lot of them that fall into that. Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison. Yep. Man, there's a ton. You go look at that, you're like, okay, there's got to be some kind of significance to that because too many major famous people have died at that age.
Was Karen Carpenter that young too? Was Karen Carpenter 29 when she died too?
Man, I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure about that one.
I'm trying to remember all the different.
Yeah,
there's tons of them. There's tons of them. So that's what's so wild. Is it? You know, it's not just a handful of them.
Yeah, it is. It's, you know.
Yeah, Karen Carpenter was like older. 33.
Okay.
That's another number.
That's another number. Yep.
Oh, she slipped. You slipped by. Let's get her at 33.
Well, I'm sorry. She was 32. She was 32. 32. I was guessing by the years I saw there.
That's a number 2. You can rabbit hole down all these things and stuff, and some of it is very valid, and some of it can be, you know, I see that a lot. People, sometimes I'm like, you know, they'll be watching something. It even happens to me on podcast. I had someone comment on something that we did on Audiotopsy where they said that, you know, literally Tom Dunn was coughing because he had been sick, and somebody was on there and they were like, Tom Dunn is a witch. He coughed. He's casting spells on people. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Oh, they will watch everything. Hand signals. And I have to tell people sometimes, I'm like, you know what? You can take it too far. Sometimes, man, like, you know, a triangle's a triangle, man. Yes, it isn't always going to be tied to something. You know, everything can't be, but, you know, a lot of it, yeah, I do. But some of it, man, you kind of, you know, it can't be that every time you do an OK symbol that it's 666 or it's white supremacy or something. You're like, come on, man. This is way too over the top, you know. And trust me, I love it. I love that stuff, man. I look for it, but, you know, it gets to be too much.
Robert Johnson was 27 when he died.
There you go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Boom.
Wow. Interesting. Yep.
See, now we're not reading into that. Yeah.
No, we're not reading. That's really on point. That's why I said, that's why I think that he ties into that immensely.
Yeah. I like Kenny said, everybody out there in podcast land, I totally agree with is pareidolia is what he's talking about, and
Yes.
it is a real thing for people that are in our community, our fringy kind of community, to where we begin to see things that aren't really there, and that's something that I
And everything.
really, yeah, and I think what really helps me with that is just to laugh, to watch something really stupid like Dumb and Dumber, and or a really dumb funny movie. I don't want to tell people to watch Dumb and Dumber; it's vulgar, but watch a really really funny movie. Just forget about it. Don't see the threes everywhere and the triangles and like Kenny was saying and stuff. And that's
You know what? It's fun. I love watching stuff and analyzing, and you can find all kinds of things. And I think that's a researcher's heart. You're always looking for something, but sometimes you have to look at it and go, did they really mean for this to be this way, or is it just pareidolia or whatever? It's not always the stuff, yeah, you just got it with a grain of salt, man. That's some of it's very real. Some of it's very real, but did you have something, Brandon, happen with you with somebody accused you?
Yeah. What? Oh, of the witchcraft stuff? Oh yeah. That was a nightmare. This guy came on my account and just basically railed on me because I had the word practitioner, so I'm obviously a witch. And then he hyperly went and found anything he could find on my page to took snapshots, put it on his page. Then another little one jumped in, and then all my wonderful friends went to my rescue, defending me.
Yeah.
And then it just made it worse. So I was like, okay, let's just chill. Let's just let it die. Proverbs says that a fire that's not stirred will die out. And so we had to just ignore it. I just blocked him and went on. But
that's what you have to do with a lot of this, man. You have to come to a place. I've had some really big people in the industry with Skywatch and different stuff. I've had some issues happen to me, and they basically said at some point, man, don't feed the trolls.
Yep.
Don't feed the trolls. And sometimes, man, just go with it. Just let it. It's better to just let it go because they'll fade out. It just block and delete is part of my favorite thing anymore. Somebody comes on there and I'm like, you know what? No, you're not going to do that on my page. Bam, you're done. And it happens a lot more than you think.
And the other thing too, and this is really big for me, a discipline, is just to not take myself too serious. I mean, I'm important in God's plan because He made me important, but I don't need to take myself too serious. I need to learn to, like the Bible says, to flow with the unforced rhythms of grace. It says in the Message, and I have a tendency to do that. I'll take myself too seriously, and so that's why I've learned just to laugh and even after that guy poked me, I laughed and made fun of myself about that. I said, "Yo, you're going to join my coven," and funny stuff like that. I had to. So, anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it happens, man. I mean, I've had all kinds. I won't go into details, but I've had some stuff that just completely floored me early on, man. And people that would want to destroy everything you have, kill my business, my teaching business with children and stuff. And you're just completely it does. It's hard to not get a little hurt on that because you're like, man, wow, you don't know these people and they're just going out of their way for it. So, a lot of it's just you have to kind of you watch your inner circle, man. There's some people that there's a lot of people in here. I'm really glad Brandon, I met you with some of the different ones on here. I think you guys got a great thing going on here. You guys are really solid. I think it's one of the few podcasts I really want to support, and just because I know you guys on a more personal level, even though we've never met in person, it's like I like what you guys are doing. So it's all pretty positive, and that's a good thing, man.
All right,
Jesus centered, my friend. Jesus centered.
Yeah, and that's Lindsay and I's goal. But I want to do this first. We hope Sadie and I definitely hope, God willing, to meet you coming up in July. Will you tell everybody about that? What's happening in July that you're going to be speaking at?
Yeah. This is going to be my second appearance at Dr. Mike Spalding. He has a conference called Go Therefore. It's really great. I've seen some amazing speakers there. this one coming up is going to be one of the biggest ones they've had. I'm getting to speak, and I'm, to me, just to being on the same conference with L.A. Marzulli, Derek and Sharon Gilbert, Tom Dunn's going to be there, Vicky Joy Anderson's going to be there, Casper McLeod. It's a bunch of really great speakers that are going to be there. You can go there for website, and it'll tell you what it is. It's not an expensive con either. It's very reasonable. The price and stuff. They've got a special deal at the hotel. We all stay there. Yeah, go there for the end of July. I've been to the church. They have it at Harvest Revival Center, and it's right outside Brookville, Ohio, right outside Dayton.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, thank you for that, Kenny. Is there anything else you guys, Lindsay or Nathan, you want to contribute about the movie or anything before we wrap this up?
No, I don't have anything in particular.
Okay. But thank you, Kenny, so much for coming on our Epishow is what we call it. We appreciate, Kenny, so much for you coming on. And special thanks to Lindsay. Thank you for being here. And Nathan, too. I appreciate we had a great time.
Enjoyed it.
And a good talk. So
absolutely. Hey, and Brandon, if you don't ask to learn to play Eugene's trick bag right now, it's going to take a while.
No, we're gonna do Cliffs of Dover. That's my goal, which is probably as hard. So anyway,
that's just as hard, man. Golly,
I think that's a little more hard.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, sure.
I know.
Look, that's what I tell everybody. I learned how to play Eugene's trick bag in the big battle, but I can always do the scene where Steve Vai messes up. Actually, I can play it as a joke. I can do it note for note, and I'll stop with it and do the thing. Oh, it's hilarious, so that's good. Hey, and I'll tell you what, if you ever get a chance and you see Vicky Joy Anderson in person, it's part of the reason me and her connected so quickly, because Steve Vai does a face when he's battling Eugene where he kind of contorts his face and makes this little weird face. And Vicky was talking to me, and we were talking about Crossroads, and she did it, and I went, "Oh my gosh, you just did Steve Vai face." And she says, "I've done that face for people for 30 years and no one ever got it. We're like brother and sister."
That's cool. That's awesome.
She does it great. It's hilarious, man. It cracks me up every time because it's exactly what Steve Vai does to Eugene. He kind of looks at him and he kind of puts one eyebrow up and stares at him and shakes his head. It is hilarious. Make sure I don't know when you guys are going to have you already had her on?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow.
11.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Ask her about Steve Vai face. Kenny said you do the best Steve Vai face. Yeah, we tell her we just did an episode on Crossroads. She'll love it. Dude, we should have brought her on here. Man, I wish I'd thought about it.
I'm gonna see if she'll
you'll enjoy it.
I'm gonna see if she'll spring one time and do one of these with us. I bet you she will. So one of these movie analysis. I bet you she will.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, absolutely, man. We talk a lot of music and movies and stuff. She's very, very, very cool, man. She's like one of my best friends. I've only really gotten to know her since the last Go There For conference. But that's what I tell people. Go to these things, man. You're going to meet people that, you look up to and see, and you go to stuff, and then you realize they're very real people, and you develop real friendships with them, man. And that's to me is like the best thing in the world, man. Because now you've got actual, biblical friendships with friends that are Christ-centered, and you're all on the same page. It's so edifying, man. It really is.
Yep, you're right. Yep, it has been for me. Thanks for listening and supporting us. And remember, stay naturally supernatural.